Chapter 4. Help me! Kicking furiously, trying to force the prickly cockroaches off her feet, Corky stumbled to her door. Mom! Dad! Please! With each step she could feel the cockroaches crackle and squash beneath her bare feet. Nausea swept over her. Help me! Bending to brush the glistening insects off her legs, she burst out of her room, into the dark coolness of the narrow hallway. Mom! Dad! Hey, what's going on? Mr. Kukorin appeared down the hall in his bedroom doorway, wearing only pajama bottoms, rubbing his eyes, looking like a bear coming out of hibernation. Dad! Corky, what's the big idea? He stepped into the hall, stretching his arms above his head with a loud groan. Cockroaches! Corky managed to blurt out, still feeling sick, still feeling the prickly legs crawling up her legs. Huh? Cockroaches! Corky, I hope you didn't wake me up because there's a cockroach in your room, he warned. This is an old house, and old houses sometimes. What's all the racket? Mrs. Kukorin interrupted, appearing suddenly behind her husband, brushing her blonde hair back off her forehead. Corky, what on earth? She ran to Corky and threw her arms around her. You're shaking all over. What is it, dear? Corky tried to answer, but her voice caught in her throat. She pulled away from her mother and grabbed her hand. Then she tugged her toward her bedroom. Cockroaches, Mom, she finally managed to say. Her father followed, shaking his head. That's all she keeps saying, cockroaches. They followed Corky to her room. Look, Corky said. She stepped into the doorway and clicked on the ceiling light. She took a deep breath, trying to hold down the waves of nausea, and pointed to the floor. Just look. All three of them peered down at the wine-colored bedroom carpet. I don't see anything, Mr. Kukorin said quietly. Mrs. Kukorin stared hard at Corky, concern troubling her face. The cockroaches were gone. Hey, you guys woke me up, Sean's angry voice echoed in the hallway. They turned to see his blonde head poke into Corky's room. Sean, did you play some kind of practical joke on your sister? Mr. Kukorin demanded sternly. Sean's face filled with genuine innocence. Who, me? Wow, we're here, Corky exclaimed, staring out the bus window as it bumped through the small campus of Madison College, where the cheerleader camp was being held. The ride from Shadyside had been nearly an hour, and the girls had laughed and joked and sung the whole way. It's perfect, Hannah declared excitedly. All the brick buildings covered with ivy, like a movie set. But where is everyone? Deborah asked, leaning over Corky to see out the window. Spring break, Kimmy told her from the front seat. You mean no guys, Ronnie cried. She looked so devastated everyone laughed. Simmons, the young blonde bus driver, pointed out the large domed gymnasium, then drove to a tall brick dormitory about a block from it. As the bus pulled to a stop, a young woman, a cheerleader camp employee, hurried out to greet the girls and give them their room numbers. A few minutes later, Corky, Kimmy, and Deborah found themselves in their assigned room. A large picture window overlooked the campus. The walls were lime green, the low ceiling bright yellow. 2 small desks were pushed back to back in the middle of the room. A third desk stood against one wall, between 2 low dressers. Over one of the dressers, someone had tacked up a poster of U2. I claim this bed, Deborah declared, tossing her backpack onto the narrow bed in front of the window. I have to have a window? Corky spotted the bunk bed on the opposite wall. Do you want the top or bottom? She asked Kimmy. Kimmy shrugged. Top, I guess. The campus is so much bigger than I thought, Deborah said, staring out the window at the green quadrangle, a grassy square surrounded by brick classroom buildings and other dorms. What a shame there's no one here. Just cheerleaders, Kimmy said. Dozens and dozens of cheerleaders. She opened her suitcase and began to unpack, unfolding tops and sweatsuits and balled-up socks, and jamming them into the top drawer of the low maple dresser beside the bunk bed. Corky laughed and pointed. You sure you brought enough socks? Kimmy's cheeks turned pink. She brushed a strand of hair off her forehead. My feet sweat a lot. She glanced up at Corky. Some of us don't like to wear the same socks for a month, she teased. She pulled a worn brown teddy bear from the suitcase and tossed it up on the top bunk. Oh, wow, Deborah exclaimed from across the room. Kimmy, don't tell me you still sleep with your teddy bear? Even my little brother gave up his teddy bear, Corky teased. But your bear is really cute. Kimmy's cheeks burned even redder. I don't need to sleep with it. I just take it places. It's sort of a good luck thing. I guess we can use some good luck, Deborah said wistfully. Her comment brought a chill to the room. Everyone became silent. Deborah, her arms crossed over her chest. continued to stare out the window, her suitcase still unopened. Corky knew they were all thinking about the evil spirit. Had it followed them to camp? Was it in the room with them now, hiding inside one of them? Without realizing it, Corky stared hard at Kimmy. Kimmy seemed so nervous. She'd been so tense on the bus that brought them from Shadyside that she hadn't joined in on the songs or any of the kidding around. Sitting next to Deborah in the back of the small bus, Corky had confided her dream. She told Deborah about Bobby pulling off the top of her head, about the cockroaches inside, and the cockroaches she thought she saw on her bedroom floor. She knew that Deborah wouldn't laugh at her. Ever since the evil spirit had been revealed the previous fall, Deborah had become obsessed with the occult, with ancient superstitions and spirits. She had begun wearing a crystal on a pendant around her neck, a crystal that she believed had special powers, and she read book after book on spiritualism, the occult, and the dark arts. "I've been studying dreams," Deborah had replied seriously, her icy blue eyes staring into Corky's. "What could that awful dream mean?" Corky demanded. "I mean, it was just so gross." "Bobby was trying to tell you something," Deborah replied in a low voice. "She was trying to show you something?" "Show me what? Cockroaches?" Corky asked. "Why would she want to show me cockroaches?" Deborah chewed thoughtfully on her lower lip. She shook her head. "I don't know, Corky. I don't get it." Corky wanted to forget the dream and enjoy the cheerleading camp, but the dream was hard to shake. It had followed her to the campus. Had the evil spirit followed her too? All three girls were shaken from their somber thoughts by a loud knock on their door. Deborah reached the door first and pulled it open. "Hannah, hi," she exclaimed. Wearing a green t-shirt over black leggings, Hannah marched past Deborah into the center of the room. She was lugging 2 large leather suitcases, one in each hand. She plopped them down inside. "Ugh." "What's going on?" Deborah demanded, closing the door and following Hannah back to the center of the room. Kimmy and Corky both stared at Hannah curiously. "Can I room with you guys?" Hannah asked, reaching back to adjust her long braid behind her shoulders. "Huh?" Corky cried in surprise. "There's no room for me with Ronnie and Heather," Hannah declared. "They both filled up the dressers before I could start to unpack. And look at all the stuff I brought." She gestured to the 2 bulging suitcases. "Your room is bigger," Hannah continued, gazing around. "There's nowhere for me to put my stuff in the other room." "But, Hannah," Kimmy started to object. "And get this," Hannah said, ignoring Kimmy. "Ronnie took the top bunk, even though I told her I can't sleep on the bottom. I mean, it just creeps me out to have someone sleeping above me, you know? But she was so stubborn, she refused to move down." "What about the other bed?" Kimmy suggested. "There's a 3rd bed, right?" "Yeah, sure," Hannah replied heatedly. "But Heather claimed it. She says she has to be by the window, or else she can't breathe." "I can understand that," Deborah said, glancing at the bed she had staked out by the window. "So can I room with you guys?" Hannah asked. "But there are only 3 beds," Corky protested. "Yeah, these rooms are designed for 3, Kimmy added, gesturing around. 3 desks, 3 dressers, 3 beds. Hannah sighed again and rolled her eyes unhappily, her face drooping into a pout. "Well, would one of you trade with me?" she asked reluctantly. "I'm all unpacked," Kimmy protested. She clicked her empty suitcase shut. "Come on," Hannah urged in a tiny voice. "Somebody trade places with me. You've got to. I'm just too claustrophobic in the other room. I'll freak. I'll totally freak. Really." She glanced from Deborah to Corky, then back to Deborah. "Well, okay," Deborah finally relented. "If it means that much to you, Hannah." "Yes, it does. Thanks, Deborah," Hannah cried. And to Deborah's surprise, Hannah rushed over, threw her arms around Deborah, and hugged her. "You're a real pal," she squealed. "No big deal," Deborah said, casting an uncomfortable glance at Corky. She started to collect her things. Hannah dragged her suitcases over to Deborah's bed by the window. "Hey, we're going to be late," Kimmy cried, glancing at her watch. "We're supposed to be in the gym at 2 o'clock. "See you down there?" Deborah called. The door slammed behind her. "Where's the gym?" Hannah asked, opening one of her suitcases and starting to unpack. "It's that big gray building with a dome. Remember? We passed it on our way here," Corky told her. "I'll never get unpacked in time," Hannah said. She turned to Kimmy. "Which dresser is mine?" Kimmy pointed. "You've got to hurry. We get points taken off for being late." "Even for practice? That isn't fair," Hannah protested. "Do we have to be in our uniforms?" "Not for practice," Kimmy said. "Only at night for the competitions." "We're going to win every night," Hannah declared. "I just know it." "That's the spirit," Corky said dryly. "Corky, would you do me a big favor?" Hannah asked, unfolding a pair of jeans from the suitcase, the 3rd pair she pulled out. Why did she bring so many jeans, Corky wondered. Why did she bring 2 suitcases for a 1-week stay? Sure. What? She asked Hannah. Would you run me a hot bath? The request caught Corky by surprise. What did you say? Would you run a hot tub for me? I feel so grimy after that long bus ride, but I've got to get this stuff unpacked, and I don't want to be late, please? Corky glanced at Kimmy. Kimmy made a face, crossing her eyes. Yeah, sure, Corky told Hannah. She started toward the bathroom in the corner. You're a pal, Hannah said, pulling 2 pairs of denim cutoffs from her suitcase. I don't believe her nerve, Corky thought angrily. She really thinks she's a princess or something. Corky pushed back the white plastic shower curtain, then bent down to turn on the water. First, Hannah complains that the other room is too small for her, Corky thought, getting even more annoyed. Then she orders me around like I'm a servant. It's really unbelievable. She put her hand under the faucet to gauge the water temperature, then turned the knob to make it a little warmer. Okay, it's going, she told Hannah, returning to the main room. Thanks, Hannah muttered distractedly. She was arranging her makeup and other cosmetics on a dresser top. We'd better hurry, Corky said to Kimmy. She walked to the mirror and pulled a hairbrush back through her straight blonde hair. You ready? In a sec, Kimmy replied. She disappeared into the bathroom, closing the door behind her. I guess we'll meet you in the gym, Corky told Hannah. Yeah, fine, Hannah said, starting to unpack her second suitcase. Kimmy emerged from the bathroom. Don't take too long, she warned Hannah. Corky followed Kimmy out to the hallway. She closed the door behind her. She heard the latch click as Hannah locked the door from the inside. Do you believe Hannah? Corky asked, as they started to walk toward the elevator. Kimmy stopped short. Oh no, I forgot the pom-poms. Miss Green said she was counting on me to remember them. They both turned and made their way back to the room. That was a close call, Kimmy said. Kimmy reached for the doorknob, but her hand stopped in midair as a scream rang out. Both girls froze. Another high-pitched shriek. It was Hannah, Corky realized at once. Hannah inside the room, screaming in horror. Chapter 5. Corky fumbled in her bag for the room key. Kimmy pounded furiously on the door. Hannah, what's wrong? Hannah! Her hands trembling, Corky finally jammed the key into the lock and pushed the door open. As she and Kimmy hurtled into the room, Hannah came running out of the bathroom, a large maroon bath towel wrapped around her. Dripping water, she pointed an accusing finger at Corky, her eyes wide with anger. How could you? She shrieked in a shrill, high-pitched voice. How could you? Hannah, what happened? Corky demanded, gaping at her, bewildered. What happened? Kimmy repeated, right behind Corky. How could you? How could you? Hannah repeated frantically. You tried to scald me. Huh? Both Corky and Kimmy cried in unison. The water, it was so hot. I didn't know. I stepped right in. I trusted you. But, Hannah, Corky started. Look at my legs, Hannah screamed. Look! She lifted the towel to give the other 2 girls a better view. You tried to scald me, she repeated. Corky lowered her eyes to Hannah's legs, still dripping wet. Both legs were bright red from the feet nearly up to the knees. But that's impossible. I tested the water, Corky protested. Hannah glared furiously at Corky. That's just so mean. I don't, she sputtered. The water probably started coming in hotter after Corky left, Kimmy said, coming to Corky's defense. Really, I tested it. I did, Corky insisted, staring at the scarlet flesh of Hannah's legs. Hannah pulled the towel around herself more tightly. She didn't reply. I wouldn't deliberately hurt you, Corky muttered. Should we get you to a nurse or something? Kimmy asked. Hannah shook her head. They're starting to feel better. I was just shocked, that's all. I'm really sorry, Corky said, but I know the water was okay when I left it. Hannah shrugged. Okay, guess I overreacted. You sure you're okay? Kimmy asked. Yeah, fine, Hannah replied. She took a few steps into the center of the room. I guess I'm okay. Sorry I freaked like that. She turned and disappeared back into the bathroom. See you at the gym, Kimmy called. We'll explain to Miss Green why you're late. Corky's mouth dropped open in a silent gasp as her sister suddenly flashed into her mind. Bobby had died because of scalding hot shower water, Corky remembered. I really did test the water, Corky muttered, more to herself than to Kimmy. Kimmy picked up the carton of pom-poms. They headed out the door. Weird, Kimmy muttered, shaking her head as they walked quickly down the long corridor to the elevators. Weird. It sure is, Corky thought. And then she remembered that Kimmy had gone into the bathroom while the water was still running. That's right, Corky told herself. Just before we left the room, Kimmy went into the bathroom. She glanced at Kimmy as the elevators came into view. Kimmy stared straight ahead, her face expressionless, revealing no emotion. Did Kimmy go into the bathroom and turn the hot water up? Corky wondered. Did Kimmy try to scold Hannah? Hey, America, the time is here. Shadyside, stand up and cheer. Here we come, we want the world to know. Shadyside is the hit of the show. Cheering loudly, the 6 Shadyside cheerleaders ended the routine with synchronized back handsprings. Ow! Ronnie cried out, losing her balance and landing hard on her arm. Miss Green blew her whistle as the other squad members clustered around Ronnie. Kimmy and Deborah helped her to her feet. I'm okay, Ronnie insisted. Really, I'm all right. She tested her shoulder, rotating her arm like an airplane propeller. It feels okay. Then let's try the routine again, Miss Green said brusquely. She glanced at the sidelines where one of the camp officials was scribbling notes rapidly on her clipboard. Miss Green blew her whistle again. Whistles were blowing all over the enormous gym. Cheerleading squads from 15 different schools were shouting, dancing, leaping. Sneakers squeaked and thudded on the polished floor. Songs echoed off the tile walls. What an amazing sound, Corky thought. I'll bet it doesn't sound like this anywhere else in the world. A few feet away, the cheerleaders of the Redwood Bulldogs were practicing roll-ups into partner pyramids. Their blue and gold uniforms, which they wore even though uniforms weren't required, looked fresh and new. Look at that girl, their captain, Corky said to Kimmy, practically having to shout in her ear to be heard. She pointed to a cheerleader with beautiful long red hair. She's really awesome. I know her, Kimmy exclaimed. She used to go to my Sunday school. Her name is Blair O'Connell. She is awesome, and she knows it. They watched Blair perform an astounding cartwheel, then flip herself effortlessly up onto her partner's shoulders, her red hair flying like a victory pennant. Wow, Corky said, shaking her head in admiration. She is really outstanding. We can beat her, Hannah cried, suddenly appearing behind Corky and Kimmy. We'll just have to work harder, that's all. Come on, everybody, Hannah shouted, clapping her hands. Let's show the Bulldogs are not so hot. Hannah acts as if she's the captain, Corky thought scornfully, but she found herself caught up by Hannah's enthusiasm anyway. Clearing her mind of all unpleasant thoughts, Corky threw herself wholeheartedly into the routine. Hey, America, the time is here. Shadyside, stand up and cheer. As the Shadyside squad practiced its cheer, Corky saw Blair O'Connell watching, her arms crossed over her chest, a sour look on her face. As the routine ended and Ronnie again mistimed her backflip and fell, Corky saw Blair laugh gleefully as she pointed Ronnie out to one of the other Bulldog cheerleaders. Kimmy stepped up beside Corky. She had obviously been watching Blair too. I never liked her, she said in Corky's ear. She's so stuck up, she's disgusting. But what a figure, Corky exclaimed. She's so tall, and look at that tiny waist, and... Miss Green's angry voice interrupted their conversation. We're not here as spectators, she scolded. Let's start again. Ronnie, are you going to land on your feet or your butt this time? Ronnie blushed. Her upper lip glistened with perspiration. She tugged at her curly copper-colored hair and uttered a cry of exasperation. I'll get it this time, she promised. Let's go, let's go, let's go, Hannah cried, jumping up and down and clapping. She's the cheerleader's cheerleader, Corky thought sarcastically. Her eyes went from Hannah to Blair. Two of a kind, Corky thought bitterly, except that Blair is more talented. Corky lined up with the others to begin the routine again. The gym grew hotter, the air thick and damp. The shouting voices, the cheers, the singing and clapping, it was all starting to make Corky's head spin. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, but the bright lights didn't fade. The echoing sounds only grew louder. She reopened her eyes and began the routine. It went better. At least, Ronnie didn't fall. Again, Corky watched Blair O'Connell in her sleek blue and gold uniform, an expression of superior amusement on her beautiful face. They did the routine one more time. Then Miss Green suggested they work on handsprings. As they practiced, camp officials circulated and studied each team carefully, jotting down notes, having brief conversations with coaches and advisors. Corky performed a handspring, then moved into a spread eagle jump. Pretty good, she thought, breathing hard. This is quite a workout, but I'm really getting into it. She wiped the perspiration off her forehead with the back of her hand. Corky, can I give you a little advice? Hannah said loudly, stepping up in front of her. It wasn't a question, Corky realized immediately. You need to get more lift on your spread eagle jump, Hannah instructed. You're still a little too low. Huh? Corky wasn't sure she was hearing correctly. Was Hannah, a freshman, really giving her advice in front of the entire squad? If you bring your feet in closer together, you can control your jump better, Hannah continued. Watch, I'll show you. She proceeded to perform a spread eagle, jumping high off the floor, her eyes on Corky the whole time, her long braid flying. She landed gracefully, a pleased smile on her face. See? Thanks, Hannah, Corky said without enthusiasm. I'll try it. She turned quickly and walked over to Deborah and Heather. What unbelievable nerve, Corky thought angrily. I don't mind taking advice from the other girls, but Hannah really thinks she's the queen of the world. She's only a freshman after all. Bobby and I were all state in Missouri. I think I can get along without advice from Hannah. Hey, lighten up, Deborah called, seeing Corky's angry, tight-lipped expression. People are watching, she teased. 10 points off if you lose your smile for a second. Corky plastered a big, phony smile on her face for Deborah's benefit. That's better, Deborah said, laughing. She was fingering the crystal she always wore around her neck. She flashed Corky a thumbs-up sign, then returned to working on partner pyramids with Heather. Corky hadn't noticed that Kimmy had come up behind her. She jumped, startled, when Kimmy started to talk. Someone has to take Hannah down a peg or two, Kimmy said with surprising bitterness. Huh? Corky hadn't realized that Kimmy had observed her jumping lesson from Hannah. She's the pits, Kimmy said through gritted teeth. Sometimes I could just murder her, couldn't you? The way Kimmy said those words gave Corky a cold chill. Sometimes I could just murder her. Corky shrugged. Hannah is Hannah, I guess. Kimmy stared at her with no expression. Whistles blew. The cheerleaders were being called to a meeting to hear about the evening competition. There would be minor competitions each evening. On the fourth and final night, a major competition would be held. Each squad would perform its most complicated routine, and awards would be presented to the winners. After the meeting, Corky walked alone back across the quadrangle to the dorm. Her legs ached. She was hot and sweaty. What a workout, she thought. Well, Deborah had warned her that cheerleader camp was mostly hard work. A cool, late afternoon breeze did refresh her as she made her way across the nearly deserted campus. A few college students circled the quadrangle on bikes. She pulled open the glass doors to the dorm and stepped inside. Her sneakers squeaked on the marble floor as she crossed to the elevators. The lobby was deserted and quiet, but somewhere far down the hall, country music was playing. Thinking about taking a long, cool shower, Corky stepped onto the elevator and rode up to the 6th floor. She stepped out and began walking along the dark carpet to her room. To her surprise, her sneakers stuck to the carpet. What's happening? She cried out loud, looking down. The carpet appeared to be moving, undulating like waves. Hey! Corky cried out. She blinked, once, twice, waited for her eyes to adjust to the dark hallway, to stop playing tricks on her. She tried to walk, but the floor was sticky and wet. The carpet still moved in waves, thick and black, rolling over her sneakers. No! Corky screamed. Can anyone hear me? She thought. Is anyone up here? The entire carpet had become a dark, thick sea, rolling and tossing, swaying back and forth. I can't walk, Corky screamed. Is anyone here? Can anyone help me? Like bubbling tar, the thick liquid rose up and over her sneakers, over her ankles. It's pulling me down, Corky realized. I can't move. It's so sticky. It's pulling me down. Help! Chapter 6. It's so sticky, Corky cried again. I can't move. She looked up to see Deborah staring down at her, her naturally calm features twisted in alarm. Corky, what is it? What are you doing down there? Deborah dropped to the floor and wrapped an arm around Corky's trembling shoulders. It's so sticky, Corky repeated, still dazed. Huh? What's sticky? What's happening? Deborah demanded frantically. Corky realized she was on her knees, on the dark carpet, the still carpet. It was no longer rolling and tossing. Confused, she rubbed the dry carpet with her palms. Deborah? Deborah's eyes were locked on Corky. She kept her arm protectively around Corky's shoulders. Why are you down here, Corky? Did you fall? Corky raised herself back up on her knees. She shook her head. No, I didn't fall. It pulled me down. Deborah's mouth dropped open. Huh? The carpet. It started to roll back and forth, then it turned into a sticky liquid and tried to pull me down. Corky stared intently at Deborah, trying to read Deborah's expression, trying to see if Deborah believed her. Deborah shut her eyes. The evil spirit? She said, lowering her voice. Yeah, Corky agreed quickly. It's here, Deborah whispered. I can feel it. Letting go of Corky, she moved her hand to the crystal that hung around her neck. With her eyes still closed, she twirled the crystal rapidly in one hand, then squeezed it tightly. She opened her eyes and climbed to her feet, reaching down with both hands to Corky. Here, let me help you up, she said softly. Let's get you back to your room. Who's doing this to me? Corky asked, unsteadily resting one hand against the wall. Who is torturing me? Deborah shook her head, her expression tight-lipped and thoughtful. I don't know, Corky, she replied, guiding Corky to her room. I really don't know. The Bulldogs won the evening competition easily. They performed an endless rap routine that wowed the judges. Blair O'Connell, with her beautiful red hair floating behind her, appeared to defy the laws of gravity with her jumps and flips. The other cheerleaders, dozens of them, huddled with their squads, waiting to compete and gaping in obvious admiration as Blair confidently performed her flashy solo part of the routine. "What a show-off," Kimmy whispered to Corky, as Blair and the Bulldogs ended their rap routine with a series of synchronized flips. "Blair's not really graceful. She's just an acrobat." Corky laughed. "The judges look impressed. Maybe they like acrobats." Kimmy scowled and walked away. "We can beat them, we're the best!" Hannah was shouting, clapping excitedly. "Tigers rule!" she cried. The other girls picked up the rhythm, clapping with Hannah. "Tigers rule! Tigers rule!" But when it came time for the Shadyside squad to perform, everyone was just a bit off. When both Ronnie and Heather mistimed their final tuck jumps, Corky realized that it wasn't their night. The Tiger cheerleaders trotted off, clapping to join the audience to watch the next squad performers. "We'll get 'em tomorrow night," Hannah shouted enthusiastically. "We're psyched now, we're psyched." "Yeah, we'll get 'em," Kimmy echoed, but she couldn't muster up the same enthusiasm as Hannah. After Blair and the Bulldog squad received their first place award, the red and white jacketed judge raised her hand for quiet. The roar of excited voices in the enormous gym became a hushed rumble. "On the final night, we will award a spirit stick to each member of the winning squad. The sticks will be painted with your school colors and can be used to help inspire spirit at pep rallies," she announced, straining to be heard. "But on every other night, we'll award a red spirit ribbon to the most spirited cheerleader on each squad. There's so much spirit in this gym tonight, it's unbelievable," she cried, holding up the red ribbons in both hands. "I want you all to give yourselves a cheer and a round of applause." The gym practically shook from the exploding voices, stomping feet, and clapping hands. When the cheering stopped, the judge called out the name of the red ribbon winner on each squad. Blair O'Connell accepted hers casually with a broad smile and wave at her cheering teammates. The winner on the Tigers was Hannah. She squealed with delight when her name was called, and drew a cry of surprise as she performed a cartwheel on her way to collect her prize. Corky glanced at Kimmy, who rolled her eyes to the ceiling. Then Corky noticed that Deborah was smiling broadly and clapping heartily for Hannah. When Hannah came bounding back, holding the ribbon triumphantly over her head, Deborah rushed forward and gave her a hug. The two girls walked off together, heading toward the exit. "Wow," Corky thought, following them with her eyes as everyone began filing out noisily. "Since when is Deborah such pals with Hannah?" Corky realized she was feeling a little jealous. Deborah was her best friend after all. "Corky, catch you later." Corky looked up to see Kimmy calling to her, shouting over the excited voices of the crowd. Kimmy said something else, but the words were completely drowned out. Corky slowly made her way through the crowd. As she passed Blair O'Connell, she overheard Blair boasting to another Bulldog cheerleader, a tall, pretty girl with a dramatically short hairdo. "Not much competition this year," Blair said snootily. "It was better last year," her companion replied. "Everyone's just so tacky," Blair complained. "She's deliberately talking loud so people will overhear her," Corky realized, frowning. "Did you believe that nursery rhyme routine?" Blair exclaimed, hooting and shaking her head. "What is this, kindergarten or something?" "There aren't even any cool guys around," the other cheerleader complained. They drifted out of Corky's hearing. They really are snobs, Corky thought, especially Blair. She's good, but I've never seen anyone so stuck up. "I'd like to beat them one night," Corky told herself, feeling her anger rise. "Just once. I'd like to show Blair O'Connell what real cheerleading is like. Just once. I'd like to wipe that snobby, superior smirk off her perfectly perfect face. Maybe tomorrow." Later that night, tossing in her unfamiliar dorm room bed, Corky again dreamed about Bobby. Bobby floated in through the window, her long, nearly transparent nightgown fluttering around her, her blonde hair flying out around her face, circling her head in light. "Bobby!" Corky exclaimed in the dream. As before, she reached out to her sister with both hands, and again felt the frustration, the heartbreaking frustration of not being able to touch her. "Bobby, why are you here?" Her dead sister hovered above Corky's bed, gazing down at her mournfully. "Please, Bobby, can't you tell me? Can't you tell me why you're here?" Again Bobby spoke, and again no sound came out of her mouth. "Bobby, you look so sad, so troubled. Tell me what's bringing you here," Corky pleaded. Bobby descended until she was just inches above the bed, staring down at Corky with mournful eyes. And then, as in the previous dream, she grabbed her hair with both hands and tugged hard. Her scalp pulled off, taking with it the top of her skull. Holding her scalp to one side, she leaned down so that Corky could see inside her head. No! Corky didn't want to look. Bobby, please, don't make me. She shut her eyes tightly, but couldn't keep them shut. Corky couldn't help herself. She had to see what was inside. Peering into Bobby's open skull, she saw snakes, brown snakes, slithering over one another, hissing and rattling, snapping their venomous jaws. Snakes rose up, lifting their slender triangular heads out over Bobby's skull. Snakes poured down Bobby's ears, slid down the back of her neck. Hissing louder and louder, the snake stared down menacingly at Corky with her flat black eyes. Corky snapped awake in the heavy gray light of morning. She bolted upright in bed, her heart pounding like a drum. She heard hideous screams. It's me. I'm screaming. Because of my dream, she thought. I'm screaming, and I can't stop. Blinking hard to gaze through the dim light at the unfamiliar room, it took Corky several seconds to realize that she wasn't the one screaming. The horrifying cries were coming from Hannah.